Okay, shall we begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi.
can you tell me your name?
My name is Pelemo. Well, people call me Pel. I just turned 22, so I'm officially old. I was born in Abuja, raised in Abuja, and based in Abuja. Everything is just here. Well, I hope to expand, but I'm currently here. So I've always been a creative artist from when I was really young till now. But I mostly specialize in literary art, so that's poetry, writing articles, writing stories, stuff like that. But then I'm very good with my hands as well, although I don't really have the patience for it. I am good at it. So yeah, mostly art, and then anything that has to do with development. I love to do humanitarian stuff and developmental work.
Love it. I see your shirt. And
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me about it?
Okay, so Pearl is rare. I basically created it for Rare Disease Day. Instead of writing, I am an FD warrior, I have fibrous dysplasia, instead of writing that or writing, oh, I am rare, I just thought to personalize it a bit more and just Pearl is rare. That's what it's about. So it's not about being the most special girl in the world. It's about the rare disease and what that means for me. So I have fibrous dysplasia. Whenever I say that, people think, oh my God, do you have cancer? Because fibroid and all of that, but this is fibrous dysplasia and it's different. Fibrous dysplasia basically means that I have normal bone, and a lot of times the normal bone is replaced with fibrous tissue. And so that means my bones are prone to deformities and fractures. So my bones are basically weaker than normal people's bones. And I have polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, which means that I have it in multiple bones. So not just one bone. Some people have monostotic, but I have polyostotic. And well, when it started, I would basically say I was born with it, but then nobody really knew at first. At the age of 2, they just started seeing bow legs. My bones were just bending and bending, and as I was growing up, people would say, oh, don't worry, children have bow legs, because they actually do, and they outgrow it. But my own kept getting worse and worse and worse. It was really, really bad. And they would take me to different places. Some people would say, oh, go to this herbalist. Some people would say, oh, go to this church. There were so many suggestions. And if my mom was not an enlightened person, it would have been really difficult for her and would have tried all sorts of things. And by now, I don't even know if I would be able to walk. So I'm grateful for my mom. She's a single mom, by the way. So things were like way harder for her. At some point, they even told us that if we have any surgery now, I was really young then, like 5, 8. If I had any surgery then I would probably be that height forever, you know. So my mom was like, okay, let's just wait first. Let me grow small then. So I had my surgeries at the age of 12. That's when I started having surgeries. And till date, I've had about 8 surgeries, because surgeries are the only thing that's actually kind of the replacement for a cure, because there's no cure currently. So they just have surgeries to remove the fibrous tissue and just correct the bones. So that's basically been it.
So you're not on any treatment or medication?
I am on some meds, but the medication I'm on is for osteoporosis. So osteoporosis mostly occurs in older people. So they have very brittle bones. So they take the meds so that their bones can be stronger. And since there's no direct cure for fibrous dysplasia, my doctor puts me on those medications. So it's called alendronic acid, and I take calcium and vitamin D supplements as well. But I'm currently not taking my medicine, which is crazy. I stopped because I can't afford it. Nigeria is wild. The meds went from like 1K to like 10K now, so I can't afford the medication, so I don't take it at the moment. I stopped taking my medication at some point for like a year, and that was more because of faith. And that's a whole other story. But when we went to the hospital and my doctor found out that I was not taking my medication, he was like, what? You're not supposed to stop. And that's the thing about this disease. I did not even know it was a rare disease or a chronic illness when my doctor first diagnosed me. He just made it look like, oh, you have fibrous dysplasia, don't worry, as if it would go away, but it actually did not. So he was not like, you're not supposed to go off it. I'm shocked that your bones haven't even broken now because if I don't take the meds to strengthen my bones, because it's a chronic illness, my health keeps deteriorating. The strength of my bones keeps getting my bones keep getting weaker and weaker, basically. So yeah, he was just shocked that my bones were not broken, but he said I should immediately get back on it. And now I can't afford it, so whatever happens, happens. So I, as a person, have been medicalized a lot. A lot of times I go into hospital rooms and a group of doctors, men, would gather around, sit down and just look at my body, tell me to lift your dress, stuff like it's literally like that. They don't see you as a person anymore, but rather as this specimen or thing that they need to figure out. And so I was medicalized a lot, and if I wasn't healing, they would say, oh, it's your fault. You're not exercising enough. You're not eating well enough. You're not doing this. And the thing is, so I was misdiagnosed a lot growing up. People would say, oh, it's rickets. Some doctors say this, that, because they read disease, and a lot of people don't even know fibrous dysplasia. So because of that, people thinking it's rickets would make them think that I'm supposed to have healed by now. And the thing about fibrous dysplasia is the normal treatment you get, or just exercising and doing physiotherapy, it's supposed to, normally if you have a surgery on your bones, you're supposed to get healed by putting weight on the bones. But fibrous dysplasia is the opposite of that. If you put weight, you're doing it worse because it is brittle and there's fibrous tissue there. So you're literally just making things worse. And so my doctors didn't know. And so they'd be like, put weight on it. And when I couldn't, because I literally couldn't, and I tried to, they would say, oh, it's your fault. So there's this thing of blaming, should I call myself a patient? Should I just blaming the people that have the rare disease for the rare disease because they do not understand the disease. And then apart from that, there isn't good infrastructure in hospitals. They don't even have the facilities to really, so my doctor is even an Egyptian, he's not even a Nigerian. And to even get good medical care, you need to go to these very expensive hospitals. And my God, not everybody can afford it. So you even stand the risk of not getting the correct diagnosis because you can't afford to go to those hospitals. But then again, I've had terrible physiotherapists. There was this physiotherapist that immediately 2 days after my surgery, he was just telling me, I stand up. And how am I supposed to know how to walk? My legs have just been operated on, and they expect you to just do it. So I feel a lot of times they don't see us as people anymore. And there's this thing when it comes to chronic illnesses. So chronic illnesses go out throughout your lifetime or for a very long period of time. Whereas if you have malaria, it's just not so long. So people tend to gravitate towards people that have short-term illnesses more than people that have long-term illnesses because, if you have a short-term illness, it's I'll take care of you, you get well. But then a long-term illness, it's you're a burden, just get healed. And so religion now comes into it a lot, and people just kind of put everything on you as well and say that, your faith is not strong enough, that's why you're not healed. At some point I had to stop going to church because I just felt I would be judged because I started, it's a very long story. Yeah. So the mental health aspect of it is something that people don't talk about a lot. When I was younger, my mom used to not lock me up, that's intense, but I basically never left the house, barely ever. I was just hospital, school. That was it, literally. I did not have extracurriculars. I did not go out with friends. I did not get to experience any of that because my mom thought it was more safe to keep me locked in the house and protect me rather than let me go out. And I would argue with her, I would be like, just because I use a wheelchair, it doesn't mean that I cannot go out and play with my friends. And she'd be like, Nigeria is dangerous. You don't know what will happen. If anything happens, your friends will run and leave you. And where does that leave you? Is that good? So I had to literally fight for my own independence. And it was never easy. It was never easy coming out. Mentally, staying at home for so long because of this illness, I started feeling like I got abandonment issues, trust issues, a lot of things. I might even have a mental illness, and I don't know. That happened as a result of everything, right? And therapy is so expensive. I wanted to get therapy, so I wanted to get an evaluation and then start doing having sessions, and the evaluation alone was like 50K. And then each session was 25K per session. And I'm like, if I had money, would I even like, it was just, I was just frustrated because I'm like, but then I can also understand why it's expensive, but it's just too much now. Like the government should do something to help us because it's crazy. My mental health, I would say that this disability thing is a huge factor that has played in my mental health. And then the loneliness that comes with not being understood and then having a disability. Even your friends, there are some things that your friends do that are not really inclusive and you don't even know, right? And sometimes you just feel like you'll never be able to fit in, or you just never be able to truly connect with people. Because sometimes I'm an artist, I perform on stage. So sometimes I want to have the experience of jumping on stage. That's one of my biggest dreams. And to some people it sounds very stupid, but I want to jump on stage. I want to be able to hike. That's something I want to do and I can't do because it's just not accessible to me. And when I think of all these things I cannot do because society does not enable me to do it, I don't feel okay being who I am. And then knowing that this thing doesn't have a cure and I'm going to be in this forever, it's so sad. And then physically, there are a lot of barriers. There are a lot of challenges in the outside world, especially in Nigeria. Infrastructure-wise, a lot of places are not accessible. A lot of places, there's a lot of stigma with people. One thing I get a lot is stares, like, oh my God, immediately I come out of the house, people are staring and it's just sad. And the way some people stare, they stare at you like you're this eyesore or this alien or something that came out of a cartoon, just something that's so weird. And you just feel like, am I even a human being? It does something to you. It really does. And then apart from the stares, people say some crazy things, ask crazy questions, and say really mean things. There was a boy in secondary school who said, oh, this girl, she's still in a wheelchair, why is she not dead yet? That kind of thing. And it's like people are just sitting and waiting for the worst to happen because you are a certain way. Yeah, people don't know enough. And sometimes I don't blame people for the way they react because they are not taught better. The information is not out there. People do not know much about disabilities and chronic illnesses. People don't even know that there is a difference, right? People don't even know the rare diseases. People do not know these things. And so that affects me. And something I was thinking about like 2 days ago, I was washing clothes. So I surprise everyone, I do house chores and stuff like that. Because people always ask me, oh, how do you bathe? How do you do this? Do you do that? Do you cook? Like people are so shocked, so surprised. I was lying down on the bed after washing clothes because my hands are also affected I don't know, but I can feel my hands have started cramping up, like just weird things. And I'm like, is this fibrous dysplasia? What's happening? And I was just lying down after washing because I was so tired. And that's the thing about having like a chronic illness. You do the littlest things and you get exhausted really easily. People that don't have chronic illnesses can wash and then cook and then, do everything. But then me, if I do this one, I have to go and rest for like 2 hours, then come back. So I finished washing and I was just lying on the bed and thinking, God, is this my life? Like, why can't things be easier? And yes, I have a chronic illness, but I also feel like society, people, government they have a role to play in making things easier physically and also mentally.
It's really, people are so rude.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I would say in my primary school, there was a place called David. So there was the major school, and then there was this small section that they called David's Place. Basically, that area was for children with disabilities, learning disabilities, and there's a whole spectrum. There are different disabilities people do not know about. People think once you provide a ramp, you're so inclusive and accessible. No, you're not. That doesn't make you accessible. Anyway, back to the story. There was that area, and all those children were there, and so the other children in the school thought that, oh, those children are freaks. Oh my God, like there's just this whole stigma around those kids. And even I didn't understand because I was like, and there was this girl, she had a learning disability and people were just afraid of her. Parents didn't want their children around the girl and all of that. I think that is a dangerous way to push inclusion. Because some people think, oh, if you create a school for children with disabilities, I don't even call it special needs, because special needs just makes it look like our needs are just so special or so grand. And that takes away from the idea of disability is not an abnormal thing, and it pushes ableism. Ableism, basically, people without disabilities thinking they are better than people with disabilities. So when people say special needs, they feel like, oh, they are doing us a favor by catering to these things. These are needs that are just so out of this world, But then segregating or just singling out children with disabilities and putting them in a different classroom or school and doing things like that does not help, because it just still pushes that narrative that we are not normal. We are different. We are wild beings, whatever. People have said such crazy things. And so integrating us into the normal school and making the school accessible would do more for inclusion than segregating us, right? So instead of there's something I say, inclusion only exists because exclusion already did. And my own utopia, my own dream is a world where we don't have to use the word inclusion so much. It's like a buzzword. If you want to sound like a good organization or something, it's like, oh, we're inclusive, we push inclusion. And I'm like, and there's a lot of tokenism in it because people don't actually push inclusion in the workspace, in schools, just say they do. And an example for school, in fact, this happens at events. So when I go to an event, for instance, I go to a lot of events and they have icebreakers and energizers and what's not. Cool. But then they tell me that, oh, if you cannot do this, it's fine. You can just sit down, which is such a nice thing, right? But it shouldn't be that way. You should try to make that game accessible to me too, right? I should be able to play that game because a lot of times I do want to play, but I just have to sit by the side because it's not accessible to me. So instead of saying, oh, go and sit down, because that is exclusion, in a very literal sense, but people don't think of it like actually saying the person with disability should sit or stay aside is excluding them from that experience. So instead, you can try to ask questions, and that's why I really like how he asked questions. Like, just ask questions and say, hey, would you like to play this game? Yes. Okay, I don't really know how to go about including you in this game, but if you'd love to play this game, we would love to have you. How do you think you can participate? What can you do? What can you not do? Let us know. And just try to make them feel like a part of the game, because they should be part of the game, right? So I think that's one practical step towards just including young people in schools, especially because they play games a lot, and young people, children with disabilities are excluded a lot. And these are things people don't talk about, and that's why I'm saying it now. And then when it comes to work, employability when you have a disability is crazy, because they believe that, oh, if you're in a wheelchair, then your mind does not function well. Or if you're using crutches, then automatically you are dumb, in quotes, or if you have a learning disability, or if you have a chronic illness, then you're not doing much. And it's just thinking of capitalism and how everybody wants, like, whoever they employ they want to milk you, and they don't want to provide accommodations for you to be comfortable in the workspace. And I won't say it's like that for every workspace. There are healthy working environments, but most times they just look at you as a liability, because why do I have to create a ramp because this person is here? Or why do I have to get a sign language interpreter? It's like an expense to us. So you are taking from us rather than giving. We do not want to employ you, right? So I just feel like we need reorientation in societies, because this thing starts from the mind. People need to understand that inclusion is not a privilege, it's a right. And you are taking away certain fundamental human rights by not including us, or having accessible buildings, for instance, because having an inaccessible building is basically saying that these kinds of people are not allowed here. That's literally, because a person, let's say an inaccessible place with stairs, you're literally saying someone in the wheelchair, like they are not allowed in that space, because they literally cannot come, But yeah, accommodation should be provided. In some other countries, they have stuff, I don't know what this thing is called, but you literally stand on it, or they put your wheelchair on it and it takes you up, right? It's not an elevator. Literally, it's outside and it just takes you up to the... I know Nigeria is not there yet, but we can start from somewhere, right? You can start from somewhere, and all these organizations, big organizations, to do things in inaccessible places, we need to change our mindsets. I would say for me, that's the first step. I don't know why I'm advising already, but I'm a call to action kind of person. So yeah, so there's a lot we can do. So it's very little things, like asking questions first. So I'm really glad I'm having this interview.
I'm glad we're having this interview. I'm learning a lot.
Okay, so a lot of things happen when people are not informed or misinformed. And I would say throughout history, there's a lot of different myths or stories people have shared. They say if you kidnap someone with albinism, that use them for rituals and you get more money, just things like that. So apart from not being informed, there is misinformation out there. Like Nigeria has there are crazy stories, and not just Nigeria. I think even other countries, there were stories about persons with disabilities being into witchcraft, and just certain stories like that. And so again, I would say that the biggest impact is in the mindset of people and then us. So how people view us, it informs how we view ourselves, and that informs or that influences how we act in society. It's always the little things, like a child not being allowed to play with other children, your mom going out with your brother and leaving you at home. People think exclusion is one big thing, but exclusion is the little things you do every day. So I would say social exclusion is one big thing, just tiny things. And if you have friends with disabilities or chronic illnesses, try to pay attention, right, to those little things, because it's not always the big things. So yeah, accessibility has its place as well. Inaccessible buildings and just infrastructure and all has its place, and it's a huge issue in Nigeria. That one is even, in fact, let's not even talk about the insecurity. Insecurity in Nigeria now is so bad. And because of the insecurity, I only use like Bolt to go around, because first of all, I cannot even walk to the junction to go and get along. So I only use Bolt to go around. And now the cost of transportation is like crazy, and everything in the country is wild. And that affects us heavily too. So I'll just say that everything that happens to the average person, we get it like 2 times worse, because we are budgeting for medication on the side. My friend has like a 50K budget a month for compulsory medication. Like everything is like 2 times worse or more for us. And at some point I started asking God, why did you make me a Black disabled woman? Right? It's like just 3 boxes that are like marginalized groups that I just check all those boxes. Like, well, okay, at least you should have made me a man or a white disabled woman or something, right? So I just felt like the worst of the worst, the lowest part of the social ladder. Yeah. So there's a lot if you want to talk about the implications, but there's so much more we can do.
What is your hope for the future?
When we talk about the future, it's just so big.
What's your ideal world?
Wow, that's bigger.
Okay, let's keep it at the future, but also the future. Whatever it means for you.
I just want a world where we stop using the word inclusion as a buzzword. Like, let's be done with that. I think it's getting old. It's annoying because NGOs especially use persons with disabilities to get grants and we're inclusive. We work for marginalized communities, young people, persons with disabilities. I'm being very open about this because it gets to me. And sometimes people only get you into things to tick the box, not necessarily because they are inclusive or they really care about your future, but because that is what is in vogue. Or the it thing in the space at the moment. So yeah, I want a world where we use that word less. And then I also want a world where children with disabilities, like honestly, that's where my heart is, children with disabilities, because I know what we went through. And I just want a world where they can play with other children freely and they don't get asked questions like, when are you dying? Because no child should hear that. And no child should hear, oh, your legs are like 2 semicircles. And, where we actually, even children without disabilities, children and parents a lot of times say, oh, don't go there, don't look at that child, don't, but rather they answer the question with, okay, this child has a disability, or do you want to say hi? Or just very soft things where children feel like, oh, okay, it's okay to talk to children like this as well. So a world where there's something I'm pushing, I'm pushing for the Disability Act to be implemented in Abuja. I've not fully started work on that because it's a whole thing, but that's something I want to do because I feel like persons with disabilities deserve to know their rights. And there's something I say a lot, we should normalize disability, right? That is something I want. Because, okay, so people would say, oh, but disability is not a good thing, or chronic illness or rare disease is not a good thing. But then a lot of times with disability specifically, there is nothing you can do about it by yourself, right? Or the doctors. Let's say someone that had their leg amputated or something. You want to grow the leg back. So what should be done is the person with disability is not the one to be changed or fixed. It is society that needs to create accommodations for the person with disability to be integrated into society as a normal person, because we are normal people. So it should be less on the person with disability and more on society. And society can be the parent, it can be the person with disability themselves, it can be the doctors. So less medicalization of disability and more looking at society and how we can make things better, because that is what we can actually do. Right? So I just want a world where we actually fully shift from the medical model of disability to the social and human rights model of disability, and just see people as people and have like a human first approach, rather than saying that persons with disabilities are abnormal. So yeah, that's my hope for the future.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for informing us and allowing us to learn and to hear. I'm so glad we had this conversation, and I'm so honored that I got to sit with you. I think you're